Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. This is my competitor's square foot gardening, but more importantly, this is a great way to garden in areas where you have a lot of heat. This is shredded hardwood. You want to use shredded hardwood in a 4x8 raised bed, and these are containers, nursery containers that I recycle, get from friends. There are 23 in here. The bed is filled up right now just with the shredded hardwood, and about a third of each container is filled with the shredded hardwood. I'll talk about the fertilizer in a second. Cut out 1/3 of the bottom, just put a big hole in there. You're going to let the root system grow from here into the ground, so they're not going to be, the plants won't be constrained by the size of the container. You want holes in the side so the root systems can get into the shredded hardwood. Just your basic nursery container, recycled and repurposed. The container goes in, first of all you put down about 1 inch worth of the shredded hardwood mulch, then you drop in your containers. Fill the containers 1/3 of the way, pack it in with the shredded hardwood. In each container right here, there's 2 full handfuls of organic fertilizer. I'm using a 4-4-4. You want to stay around a 5-5-5. A couple higher, a couple lower, doesn't really matter. Larger containers, 2 handfuls, 1 handful, and then the smaller containers have a 1/2 handful. And then I would go ahead and just mix all of this in. Now, when you're growing in the hardwood, it's going to compete for nitrogen against your plant. So as this breaks down to all the basic elements, eventually this will be great. It will feed your garden. But the first year you're going to have to really set it up right so that it doesn't take from your plants. So the fertilizer goes in here. The nitrogen will be used to help break this down in the biological process, and it will also be available for your plant. We're going to water-soluble fertilize this garden regularly every 7 days. That will keep enough nitrogen in there for the wood to break down and for your plant. So I will go ahead and mix all of this in, and then I'm going to fill it just with regular soil. You can use whatever you want. You can use 50% peat moss, 50% soil, you can use a potting mix, you can use a raised bed mix. It doesn't really matter because we're going to be adding in the water-soluble fertilizer. Now, because I have a fence on the right and back there, I put in some space so that you can walk and tend to your plants. But typically in a 4x4 or a 4x8 raised bed, you can just reach in and tend to it. So I want to get this planted up, show you what it looks like, get things growing, but this is a great way to beat the heat if you're in a high heat zone, and it's a great way to conserve resources. And it also, you can tell, since the containers are raised up, we have a lot more earth, a lot more growing space for the roots, so we can really pack plants in here more like a square foot garden. Alright, let me set this up and then we'll get to planting. I wanted to cut in and show you plants that have been growing for 3 or 4 weeks in shredded hardwood. This raised bed's completely filled with the shredded hardwood, set up similarly to the containers. I will add in the clips where I actually shot a video to show how I set all this up, but rather than doing 2 videos on the same subject, I'm just going to cut in the clips that showed you how I set up this container with the shredded hardwood and how I fertilized that to get the plants going. And they've been watered with the water-soluble fertilizer like I've been talking about. Planting was a little bit different. These cups in here right now are just the transplant cups with the plants' names on there. So when I put in stakes, these will be removed. Planting was pretty similar to the containers in the sense that I would just make a hole. You know, in the case of the containers, you're filling up the containers with the dirt, and I would fill that up with dirt, mix it around, put in a little bit more dirt, and I would drop the transplant right into that. That gives a place for the root system to establish and gives it some time to kind of get set up in the dirt before it starts working its way out into the shredded hardwood. So these are all transplants except for the beans right back there. They were put in about maybe 10-12 days ago, and they were started from seed. So let me show you the video pieces for filling up this bed here. So this is the bed that's going to be all of the shredded hardwood, double shredded hardwood. It's called different things. I wanted to show you what it looks like. A lot of your mulch looks like this. It's thick. This is going to take forever to decay and break down. Same with that. Perfect for other applications, back to Eden gardening, adding to the top of your soil, the top of your garden soil. For this process, what I'm talking about is you want the shredded hardwood. See how fine it is? The science behind this, more surface area means more soil biology and microbes can attack this, break it down quickly. The other part of the science is we're giving it nitrogen so it breaks down more quickly, feeds the soil life multiplies, everybody's happy, this breaks down. So across the top here, filled it halfway, filled it to about here, 8 handfuls, so that's about 3 tablespoons, so what, that's maybe 24 tablespoons of any organic fertilizer across the top, and then 4 handfuls of the blood meal. Plenty of nitrogen. Going to mix this down all the way through, fill it up again, do the same process. So the bed on the right is done. That's all shredded hardwood, and again, you need hardwood that's shredded to this consistency. Somebody's going to ask me, can I use any kind of wood? The answer is you can use any kind of wood. It just has to be shredded like this. You don't want large chips. Shredded finely. We're using basically what the soil biology wants. It wants nitrogen so that it can break down the hardwood, do its thing, multiply, eat, turn this into a nice batch of NP and K for your plant. So across the top I put 6 more handfuls of the organic fertilizer, 4 handfuls of the blood meal. I'll mix that into depth so it's spread out pretty nicely. You want to water this in after, let it all soak together, let it do its thing, for a day or two before you plant. Again, I recommend if this is something that's new to you, you really want to let this go several weeks, let it break down. Best again if it's done in the fall and left to go over fall and winter. However, we're going to push it. I'll show you how to do that. You're going to use a little more, a little less, depending on how high your raised bed is, how big your raised bed is. It's not a science. I'm just going by my handful, but you get the idea. We're supplying nitrogen to the soil biology that wants to use nitrogen to break down the wood, and we're taking care of it. Over here, I'm going to do a combination of what I did in the back. The back is mostly topsoil. This is all shredded hardwood. I'm going to do 4 layers. Hardwood, topsoil, see how it goes. So let me set that all up, and tomorrow we'll get to plant. I had some earth that I dug out of the ground. I was planting perennial flowers around my garden. I recommend throwing in a couple shovelfuls of your basic earth, whatever's in your area, into each container. That's going to have a lot of micronutrients, it's going to have good soil biology in there, and it'll just add it to the containers. We don't have to put anything fancy in here, so you can just do it in layers. When the plants are going in, maybe we'll mix it up a little bit, maybe we'll throw in a little peat moss. You don't have to, but we're just setting up the soil or the containers with any kind of soil we have around our area. The containers have been filled up. Leave about 1 inch or 2 at the top. We're going to put shredded hardwood mulch on top once the plants are in. That will help also conserve moisture. You don't have to do anything fancy with the soil. If you want to add peat moss, coco coir, 1 or 2 tablespoons of organic fertilizer, you can certainly do that. We have plenty of fertilizer in the shredded hardwood in the bottom, and we're going to be watering this every week, probably for about 4 weeks with the water-soluble fertilizer, and we'll adjust accordingly depending on how things are growing. I have tomatoes in there. Right side in the bigger container is a large indeterminate variety. Then I have a bush variety right there, a determinate variety, and then I have 3 smaller indeterminate varieties right in there. Peppers to the left, I've got 3 hot peppers, 5 sweet peppers, and right in there is a All America Selections Roulette Habanero, which is actually a habanero pepper that is not hot. So let me get these set up, I'll show you that. Here's what it looks like planted up. Plants that dropped in, I put in mulch, and then I soak them in well with the water. You want to give them a nice shower, let the water soak all the way into the bottom, get to the mulch that's below there, just have everything nice and wet, help the plants get established. And then after that's done, you can use any water soluble fertilizer you want. Just soak the leaves real quick and then give it a couple seconds at the base. And you're just going to do that for all the plants. Do that about once a week for 4 weeks, help them get established, and you're feeding it more. This type of bed with the shredded hardwood, you're feeding it more for the first year because the wood still has to break down. But in year 2, year 3, the wood down here is going to be breaking down, and it's going to be slowly feeding back to your plants. So it's really going to work out well. Again, word of caution, doing it for the first year, you're going to need more fertilizer. So where I didn't put the plants in, just leave it as dirt. I'm going to drop in some cucumber seeds, basil, cilantro, and probably bunching onions, and this is going to be for peppers and tomatoes primarily. You could certainly drop in A zucchini plant, like right into a container this size, and then logic will kind of dictate. The larger containers are for bigger plants. Smaller containers can deal with peppers, things along those lines. Even real quick, there are 2 peppers in there. Because the bottom is cut out, even though the container is smaller, you can grow 2 peppers successfully in there, and the root system will get right into the ground. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe. I'll show you how I take care of this, add to it, and really take care of the entire garden for 2019. And check out my website, therustedgarden.com. Thanks for watching, and hope this gives you some idea of how you can cheaply fill a raised bed using shredded hardwood and really set up a container system. It's almost like a square foot garden, but it's a lot less expensive, very targeted use of resources, and it's really going to hold moisture for the entire season. Thanks for watching.